Ellen DeGeneres stopped mid-sentence, staring at the 32-year-old man sitting across from her, who carried himself with a quiet dignity that didn't match the bags under his eyes. Daniel Torres wore a Target button-down shirt, the nicest thing he owned, and when he smiled, there was something both exhausted and unbreakable in his expression. What happened in the next 60 seconds would become the most powerful moment in television history. Because sometimes when legends collide over a story of invisible sacrifice, the whole world stops to witness what real heroism looks like. Nobody in that Warner Brothers studio knew they were about to see something that would change education policy across America. Not the cameras rolling, not the producers checking their notes, and certainly not Daniel Torres, who thought he was just there to talk about a viral GoFundMe campaign his students' parents had started. But Ellen knew. Ellen had been planning this moment for 4 weeks, ever since a video had made her call the most powerful woman in media and say 9 words that would change a teacher's life forever. There's an educator who deserves everything we have. The video was only 90 seconds long, shot by a parent on a rainy morning. In it, Daniel Torres was arriving at Lincoln Elementary School at 6:15 a.m., stepping out of a 2004 Honda Civic. But he wasn't just arriving. He was waking up. His car windows were fogged. A pillow was visible in the back seat, and he was brushing his teeth with a water bottle before heading into school. The caption read, "This is Mr. Torres. He teaches my daughter's 3rd grade class. He sleeps in his car because teacher salaries in our district are so low he can't afford rent. Yesterday he spent $200 of his own money on books for his classroom. We need to do better." Within 48 hours, 40 million views, the GoFundMe hit $50,000. Within 2 weeks, Ellen had tracked him down, and Oprah Winfrey had cleared her schedule. Now, as Daniel sat in that blue chair, his hands folded nervously, he had no idea that the woman who had revolutionized education access for millions was watching him backstage, equally amazed by his story. "Daniel, tell me how this started," Ellen said gently. "How long have you been living in your car?" Daniel took a deep breath. 8 months. My rent went up $400 in 1 year. On a teacher's salary, $42,000 a year in Los Angeles. I couldn't make it work anymore. I had a choice: keep my apartment and stop buying supplies for my students, or live in my car and make sure my kids had what they needed. That's not a choice anyone should have to make," Ellen said, her voice thick with emotion. "I know, but these kids," Daniel's voice cracked. "These kids remind me of me. I grew up in East LA, poor. My mom worked 3 jobs. We were evicted twice. But I had one teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who believed in me. She bought me books. She stayed after school to tutor me. She saw something in me I didn't see in myself. She's the reason I became a teacher. And if I can be that person for even 1 kid, sleeping in my car is worth it." The studio was completely silent. Camera operators were wiping their eyes. "What do you do after school?" Ellen asked. "Where do you go?" "I stay at school until they lock the building at 7 p.m. Grade papers, prepare lessons, tutor kids who need extra help. Then I drive to a 24-hour gym, $10 monthly membership, and shower. Then I park in a residential neighborhood and sleep. Wake up at 5:30 a.m., brush my teeth, and do it again." Ellen felt something break in her chest. "And you spend your own money on your classroom?" "Last month, $340. The month before, $280. Books, pencils, snacks for kids who come to school hungry. The district budget is—" He stopped himself. "I'm not here to complain about the system. I'm here because those parents exposed something I didn't want anyone to know. I'm embarrassed." "Embarrassed?" Ellen leaned forward. "Daniel, you're a hero. I'm not. I'm just doing what Mrs. Patterson did for me, paying it forward. But Ellen wasn't just listening as a talk show host anymore. She was listening as someone who was about to facilitate a conversation between this selfless educator and someone who had built an empire on the belief that education changes everything. Ellen stood up, and the audience sensed something massive coming. Daniel, there's someone here who's been watching your story very carefully. Someone who understands that great teachers don't just change lives, they save them. Daniel looked confused. What do you mean? Someone who started her career as a teacher. Someone who has spent decades fighting to make sure kids like you and kids like your students get the chances they deserve. The studio audience began to buzz with anticipation. Ladies and gentlemen, Ellen announced, her voice carrying unusual gravity, please welcome Oprah Winfrey. The studio exploded. 300 people jumped to their feet. The sound was deafening, but Ellen was watching Daniel, whose face had gone pale with shock. His hands gripped the chair, and then tears started streaming down his face. Oprah walked onto that stage with the presence of someone who had interviewed presidents and built schools in foreign countries. But she wasn't carrying her celebrity energy. She was carrying something more powerful, the focused intensity of someone on a mission. She wore a simple burgundy blazer and black pants. No elaborate styling, just purpose. Daniel, Oprah said, her voice carrying that distinctive warmth that had comforted millions. I've been reading about you for a month, and I have some things to say to you. Daniel couldn't speak. He was staring at the woman whose book club had taught him to love reading, whose schools had inspired him to teach, whose philosophy had shaped his entire approach to education. Oprah walked directly to him and knelt beside his chair. Not stood, not sat. Knelt. The gesture said everything about what was about to happen. Daniel, can I tell you something? I grew up poor in Mississippi. I wore dresses made from potato sacks. I didn't have books. I didn't have resources. But I had teachers like you, who saw potential in a little black girl when the world saw nothing. The studio was completely silent. Those teachers didn't just teach me reading and writing. They taught me that my circumstances didn't define my ceiling. And that's exactly what you're doing for your students. You're teaching them that someone cares, that someone sees them, that someone believes they're worth the sacrifice. Daniel was sobbing now. Oprah reached into her blazer and pulled out an envelope. Ellen and I have been working together on something for the past 3 weeks, because when we heard your story, we both thought the same thing. This man is doing the work of angels, and we're letting him sleep in his car. That ends today. She handed him the envelope. First, housing. In this envelope is a lease to a 2-bedroom apartment in Pasadena. Rent paid for 3 years. Not 1 year. 3. Because you need stability, not temporary relief. Daniel's hands shook as he took the envelope. The audience erupted, but Oprah held up her hand. But that's not all. Ellen stepped forward with a second envelope. Daniel, you've spent over $3,000 of your own money this year on your students. This envelope contains $50,000, not for you, though God knows you deserve it, but for your classroom. Books, supplies, field trips, whatever your kids need. Daniel stood up suddenly, unable to stay seated. He covered his face with his hands, his whole body shaking. But Oprah wasn't finished. She stood with him, placing both hands on his shoulders. Daniel, I'm establishing the Torres Teaching Fund. It will provide housing subsidies and classroom grants for teachers across the country who are making your choice, living on nothing so their students can have everything. Because what you're doing shouldn't be heroic. It should be unnecessary. The camera cut to the audience. Parents were crying. Teachers were standing, recognizing their own struggles in Daniel's story. Oprah continued, her voice growing stronger. And one more thing. The Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy. You know, my school in South Africa? We're opening a teacher training program, and I want you to help design the curriculum. Because teachers like you don't just need help. You need a platform. You need a voice. You need the world to understand that you're not just employees. You're nation builders. Ellen wrapped her arm around Daniel. You gave up everything for your students. Today, we're giving it back. But there was one more surprise. On the large screen behind them appeared faces Daniel recognized immediately. His students. All 28 third graders from Lincoln Elementary, appearing via video call from their classroom. Mr. Torres, they shouted in unison. We love you. One little girl, Maria, stepped forward. Mr. Torres, my mom told me you sleep in your car so we can have books. That's not fair. You're the best teacher ever. You make us feel smart even when we feel dumb. Another boy, Kevin, added. You always say we can be anything. Now you can be anything too. Thank you for not giving up on us. Daniel collapsed into a chair, covering his face, his shoulders shaking with 28 reasons why every sacrifice had been worth it. The show ended with Daniel, Ellen, and Oprah in a three-way embrace. But the image shared millions of times was simpler. Oprah kneeling beside Daniel, both crying, both understanding that education isn't just a profession, it's a calling. 6 months later, Daniel Torres had moved into his apartment. The first night, he couldn't sleep in an actual bed. It felt too comfortable after 8 months in a car. The second night, he cried because for the first time in years, he felt human again. His classroom at Lincoln Elementary was transformed. New books lined the shelves. Art supplies filled the cabinets. Every student had what they needed. But more importantly, Daniel had what he needed. Dignity, stability, proof that sacrifice doesn't have to mean suffering. The Torres Teaching Fund raised $4.2 million in its first year. Over 200 teachers received housing subsidies. Classrooms in underfunded districts got the supplies their teachers had been buying themselves. And the conversation around teacher pay shifted from theoretical to urgent. Daniel was invited to speak at education conferences, at teacher training programs, at policy hearings. His message was always the same. I didn't want to be a hero. I wanted to be a teacher. We need to build a system where those two things aren't the same. Oprah kept her promise about the Leadership Academy curriculum. Daniel spent his summer in South Africa, working with educators to design training programs that centered teacher wellness alongside student achievement. You can't pour from an empty cup, became his mantra. We have to take care of teachers if we want them to take care of students. Ellen kept a photo from that day in her dressing room. Oprah kneeling beside Daniel, both understanding that some professions are callings, and some callings require the rest of us to step up. Today, Daniel Torres still teaches third grade at Lincoln Elementary. He could have moved to a better-funded district, could have leveraged his fame into a higher-paying position. But he stayed. Because Mrs. Patterson had stayed for him. Because his students needed someone to stay for them. His former student Maria is now in 6th grade, on the honor roll, talking about becoming a teacher herself. Because Mr. Torres showed me that teachers change the world, she says. The 2004 Honda Civic sits in Daniel's apartment complex parking spot. He kept it, refuses to sell it. It's a reminder, he says, that circumstances are temporary, but purpose is permanent. Share this story if you believe teachers deserve better. Comment below if a teacher changed your life. And remember, the people who shape our children's futures shouldn't have to choose between rent and books. Some heroes wear capes, some sleep in cars. All of them deserve better than our applause. They deserve our action.